Perfect. Yes. Cool. Okay. Cool. Welcome, everyone. I'm Diego. I'm an engineer here at Pivotal. I help at Pivotal to build Cloud Foundry. It's a platform as a service. Some of you might have heard about Cloud Foundry. And tonight we'll be talking about pipelines, and we'll be sharing with you 6 best practices with pipelines, 6 continuous delivery best practices, right? And I'll be presented at Derek.
Hello, I'm also an engineer at Pivotal. I've been here for 3.5 years, and for a lot of this year that we've been doing pipelines. Cool. Okay, so let's get started. The plan for today is to give a live demo on Concourse, which is a CI tool that we use here. But before going to that, I'm just going to get like 4 or 5 slides. Usually we have some slides of like what is CI, what is CD, but I'm pretty sure you've heard it before. But I wonder, what is the goal of CI and CD? For us, here today, the goal is basically to make the release process boring, right? You don't want surprises. You just wanna you don't need a party, a cake. You need like get together to celebrate that you're releasing the software. Of course, it's nice, but the releasing process itself should not be something. It should be boring. You should just like click a few buttons and your software is there. Because in this context, like when it's boring. And we go directly to Concourse. Concourse helps us do that by providing.
Maybe just a question before. How many of you have heard about Concourse before? Maybe 20%? 15%?
Cool. And we are using Concourse.
Maybe 5. Less than 5.
Good, so you're in for a treat today. Concourse is a CI tool. It provides a pipeline as configuration. Your pipeline configuration is your code, so you commit, you push. It's a big YAML file, and you just write your pipeline in. So the good thing about it is that your pipeline is independent. So you can write your pipeline, you commit your Git repo, and then that's it. No one else will do that. Like when I install a plugin using a UI, or it's going to change your pipeline, and you're like, what the hell is this? It has to go through the code and through this UI. It provides isolated, reproducible, and debuggable builds, and the way that it does it, it provides, so Concourse is divided into jobs, and each job is divided into tasks. Each task runs in an isolated container. Everything that you do with Concourse, you manipulate what we call resources, and you have to be explicit about it. So when you manipulate resources, they don't link. Each task, if run with the same set of inputs, should output the same output. Should result in the same output. And Concourse is also extensible, so you can write your own plugins. But plugins for Concourse are what we call the custom resources. And the way you do it is write your plugin and you attach it to your pipeline YAML definition, and that's it. It doesn't come with your Concourse installation, so every time if you need to reinstall your Concourse, you don't need to worry about the 57 different plugins that you have, and you need to be sure to install it in the right same versions that you have in your installation. And it's a nice UI. It looks like a pipeline, so even if you never looked at Concourse before, you kind of understand what it's doing here. So it's getting a version, it's getting a source code, and it's running a job that's called build. This job will manipulate these inputs, these resources, and then it outputs something. In this case, it outputs a binary. So basically, that's Concourse like in a nutshell. It's a tool that uses these inputs, these resources, and then generates, runs tasks, and generates.
Like in this example, you just have one job, and now tonight we'll be building a pipeline, but a pipeline is a sequence of jobs, like many jobs chained together, right? And here you have one, but you have like it's going to be challenging because I thought I would have another mic, so I need to be typing and I need to talk, so I will do some live experiments. So, can you still hear me?
Can you change when you swap over certain any comments?
If I make it bigger, is it better?
Yeah, helps.
Yeah.
Why don't you give him the box and you have the mic?
Say again?
Why don't you give him the box and you have the mic?
Yeah, because I need my hands to guys.
And he can hold the mic for
Why
you.
does he hold the mic?
Just hold it. There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
Be the reporter. Interview.
I'll be your assistant today.
Good stuff, okay. Right, so let me go this one. So there's the pipeline here, we don't care. I will just destroy this one. I should have done this before, it's not part of the talk, but right. Cool, okay. So the goal tonight is going to be, we are going to share with you 6 continuous delivery best practices for pipeline, right? We'll be using Concourse, but like this talk tonight is not about Concourse, it's just about the 6 best practices, right? So if you are using another CI/CD tool, it doesn't matter, but like try to observe these best practices, right? Maybe something before, these best practices, we've taken them from the continuous delivery book from this number. I'm sure that you might have heard about this book, you might have read this book. So these 6 best practices come from there, so if you want more details, you can always refer to the book. Right. So just some information about my setup. I will be using Concourse here running in Docker in container. So you have this project from the Concourse team called, what is that? Concourse Docker something. There you go. I think this is one. And you can run it locally, or you can deploy it in the cloud, and it doesn't matter. But like here, I'm using that Docker. Cool. So let's build a pipeline. And then we can talk about best practices. Right? So how do we build a pipeline in Concourse? So let's start from a blank page. Oh, it's not blank because I have stuff commented out here. But this is just to avoid me typing things that are not important for tonight. So let's go to the bottom. Right, so what is a pipeline? A pipeline in Concourse is just a configuration file, a YAML file where you describe a pipeline, right? And what is a pipeline? Like in concepts, pipelines are jobs, right? You chain jobs together, right? So let's create a job. Let's call this job build, right? And what we'll be doing in this job is like we're just going to take a Java application and we're going to build that Java application, right? We're going to build a pipeline for that. Cool. I have my Concourse server running on my machine. How do I give this configuration file to Concourse? So in the Concourse world, there is a CLI tool called Fly. And I think the Concourse team is like, in Concourse, there is this universal, aviation, planes and whatever. Right, so there is this tool called Fly, and I will sort of tell Fly, hey Fly, use my local Concourse deployment. The dash T here is the target that this Fly CLI is going to use. And local in this case is just a native, and like this is translated by HTTP 127.0.0. So in Fly we have some commands, and right now I'll be using this command here, set pipeline, right? So I'll just do that to create my pipeline. I need to pass some parameters. The first one is the name of the pipeline, so I'm going to call this Pet Clinic because I will be using Pet Clinic, which is a Java application, demo example application that's ready out there. That was built by the Spring team. I built. The second parameter I'm going to use here is the where I have my secrets, right? Because we're going to do the pipeline. We're going to describe the pipeline in that YAML file, and one of the cool things about Concourse is that that's the only way to modify the state of the pipeline. Which means that I can take that config file and upload that to Git, commit that into Git, right? And I do not want my secrets to be there, my passwords and everything, right? So I will isolate that in a separate file. And in my case, I have a file called secrets, because my passwords will be in there. And then we need the config file. So this is the file that I just added the job to. Another nice thing about the Fly CLI is that every time we set a pipeline, we create a pipeline, the tool is going to show a div, right? Showing, well, this is what you're adding or this is what you're removing. And this is cool because we are sort of in control of the state of the pipeline. And I remember when I worked with other tools that you use the UI and have forms and to click in a bunch of buttons. At some point, like you lose control of the state of your build, your pipelines. It's kind of hard. And in some cases, you can export like some sort of JSON or XML. But at that point, like if you're not like actively writing that config file, it becomes too technical, and you open an XML and there are like metadata everywhere, all over the place, and you cannot like just go there and change stuff. Right? So this is one of the nice things about Concourse as well. So let me set this pipeline. Cool. I have some output here, but the most important thing is this one that the pipeline was created. Let's go back to Concourse. Let me refresh this one. I got my pipeline here called that thing. If I open that, there is just a job called build that I created. We have nothing inside, so this job is not going to do anything. And the pipeline, every time you create a pipeline in Concourse, the pipeline is called Concourse design decision. Great. So let's do the app then. So now that I have a job, I need to configure the plan for this job. And inside the job, I'm going to have what we call steps, right? I'm going to get stuff, I'm going to do stuff, and I'm going to save stuff, right? So the job, it's stateless. And that's another cool thing about Concourse. It's because, well, if you're building in a CI tool that's stateless, you are going to have your builds more, reproducible, or reproducible, I don't know how to say that. And then this means that you're not going to have like surprise, right? Okay, so my build is green now, and it's red now because there is some, state somewhere. So we're not going to have that because like we're consuming and we're, storing all the state somewhere else. So like the jobs are not going to store, to save them. So I'm going to sort of git clone my source code that I'm going to build. And in order to do this, I'm going to introduce this. There, talked a bit about that. This notion of resources. You can see this as a plugin, right? So in this case, I have a Git resource. And this is just a component that's going to, in this case, go to GitHub, and there will be a source code version, right? As simple as that. And this resource is called source code. So I'm going to get down there, and I'm going to say, hey, get source code for me, and that's it, right? That's how I get the source code inside the job. Let me try to set the pipeline again just to show you. There it is, the diff again. So now we are using the resource. This is the bit that we have in here. And we are getting the resource. Quite so good. Let's go back to the pipeline. Very good. Now the pipeline is consuming this resource here, right? The next thing we need to do in here is to compile, to use the source code, right? Let's get back there. So let's introduce another step, and this step is going to be a task. Let's call this maybe compile. Just compile. And we need to define the config for a task. And this is something nice about Concourse, because like in a job, you can have many tasks, right? And every task will run in a container. And why that's good? That's good because, well, container is not going to save state anywhere, right? Like in the end, Concourse is going to trash the container, and everything is going to be, deleted. So if you want to save something, if you want to save the output of your task, you need to put that somewhere else, right? And that's what we're doing here at Central. So let's define the container we're going to use in this task. I have a list of containers here. So Java code is what I have Maven. Let's use Maven. I will do some YAML magic here just to inject this block of code here in there. In Concourse, when you declare a container, you need to declare the platform. You need to say from where you're getting the container image. And in this case, we're using Docker Hub. Right there. There you go. Now we got the source code inside the job. Now we need to get the source code inside the container, right? So in the tasks, there is this property called include. By the way, like this is not important at all because like you can learn more about this in the Concourse documentation, right? So Concourse. Let's take this one. This one's not working. Everything that I'm telling you here is in there, so you can go there for more details. But I'm just building the pipeline to show you the best practices. So we need to declare an input. We need to. I'm going to grab the source code from the get stepping here. And now that we have the input, we need to execute some action, right? So let's do some bash here. Let's pass some args. Just let's build a script. Okay, so this is a Java project. So since I'm saying here in the input that I'm going to grab the content of that source code, Concourse is going to create a folder called source code inside the container. And now I can go there and I can do Maven package because like that's going to be my application, right? And I have Maven here because I'm using the Maven thing, right? So Maven will be there in the command line for me. I hope that will work. Because it's a live demo. At some point, like there's always something that goes wrong. Okay. Cool. I'm not going to trigger this job yet because we are going to introduce now the first best practice, right? Which is changes in our pipeline should be propagated as soon as possible, right? Imagine that you have a big pipeline. Imagine that you're consuming, I don't know, a lot of different changes, inputs from everywhere, from GitHub, from a binary, or it doesn't matter. If you have a big pipeline and if your pipeline is not reacting to these changes, you risk like getting your pipeline into a state where the first time it's going to react, it's going to have too many changes, and then like something is going to go wrong, and you will be not able to say, okay, so I can isolate, I know from where the problem is coming from, right? And this is the problem with this pipeline right now. So I built the pipeline, and the pipeline was not triggered, right? So in Concourse, things in them. So in Concourse, the way we do this is there's a property here called trigger, and we set this to true, right? And if I set that, what's going to happen? So there's the DP there, we have a trigger in there. Now I have a straight line, and in Concourse is just saying, well, the source code here is going to trigger this group here. And that should happen at some point. There you go. So my pipeline now is reacting to change, right? Every time the source code is going to change, if I'm consuming from other sources, every time things will change, my pipeline will react to that and will respond to that, right? We'll do something. Source code.
So yeah, and you click on a resource, you can see all the versions of that resource and which build it run. So you can see that's the commit that has the SHA-ED6 something. It's being used by the build number one. And you can see the history, the file, the best, all that. And also the commit message. Each resource implements its own versioning. This is for the resource.
In this case, the commit is going to pass because I know this guy. There you go. So, right. So let's have a look at the job now. In the job, like I have many things going on in that. The first thing is, well, I'm consuming from the resource, so the job is downloading the source code, and I have my task compiled, and the task is running. So remember that we defined the container. So Concourse is going to pull the container for us. And now what's happening here? Well, this is Maven, right? So Maven is going to go on here. It's going to take some time. Cool. So far, so good. Right. So let's introduce now the second best practice. The second best practice is says that every time we're downloading, we're deploying, better say, in an environment that's not prod, we should like try to make sure we should try to build an environment as close as possible to production, right? So in an ideal world, and in the book, the authors suggest that as being in an ideal world, I'd like to deploy in the same environment, right? So let's imagine that in prod you have like 20, 100 instances, right? That would be an ideal world. Why is that? Because like if you are doing continuous delivery, what's the goal of continuous delivery? It's to, it's to, I think there's, it's to shorten the feedback loop, right? Because you have business, you have idea on how to, like change stuff in your company, your product. It doesn't matter. You're going to try in the lean startup spirit to iterate and close the feedback loop to be as short as possible. So that's why you're doing continuous delivery, right? Because like, I think there are two companies. One company is going to if one company is able to iterate faster than the other, well, this company is going to get more chances to adjust and adopt the product. So that's why we're doing continuous delivery. And if you are building a continuous delivery pipeline, you might at some point deploy to different environments, right? Production, but like I don't know, pre-production, homologation, staging, testing, integration doesn't matter. And if your environments are very different, well, when you will be just about to deploy to production, like your level of confidence is not going to be very high because if you look behind your pipeline, all your deployments happen in different environments, right? But if your environments are aligned, like your level of confidence will be very high. Some examples we've seen, like in production you use an Oracle database, but like in integration or developer or staging you use a MySQL database. So yeah, you deploy to production, it doesn't work because our database is different, right? Different operating system, different, many things. So try to align that. In the case of capacity, well, it's not realistic, right? Like in a staging environment, you're not going to size as you were sizing production. In this case, try to reproduce the sort of a distributed aspect of it, right? Let's say in production, you have an application that's distributed, a database that's distributed, and you have like, I don't know, 5, 10 nodes in there. In staging, try to have at least like 2 nodes, right? To try to simulate a bit this, connection that we have in there. Right. So in this case, how we're going to solve that? We're going to use Cloud Foundry because we know Cloud Foundry, and in this case, like Cloud Foundry will solve the problem for us because like if I'm pushing to a development or staging environment in Cloud Foundry, and if I'm pushing to production, from the developer point of view, that's going to be the same thing, right? Because my contract with Cloud Foundry is going to be the same. Okay. All right, so let's deploy this. Let's create a second job, and I'm going to copy and paste this one. I'm going to call this one deploy. And now I have a task here called compile. And now I will need to save the binary here somewhere. So I will declare in this task something that I will call output. I will give it a name. I'll call it jar, and then this will create a sort of folder directory inside the container, and then I'll be able to cp target, because that's where my binary will be created inside the jar. There we go. And now, so this is YAML indentation. Let's call this deploy to staging, because I want to highlight that I'm not going to deploy to production. Let's use an image here. I will use this image mouse that contains the CF CLI. CF Cloud Foundry CLI is a command line that will allow me to interact with Cloud Foundry. There you go. So yeah, now we need to consume that binary that we created in the previous task. So I will consume this here, and I will call CF in here. So once again, I'm going to do some bash, some arguments. Let's do the script in here. Okay, so this is CF specific stuff. So I will target ACF environment. In this case, I'm going to use DevOps, which is our sort of default CF environment in the cloud. I'll just do this because I'm not sure about that. And I'll sort of specify some environment variables here. We're going to talk about in a second. I need to authenticate against CF. In CF, there is a notion of origin space. So I have the org here. Yes, and this brackets here. Thanks. And I have the CF. Let's just take staging in regard. And I can do a CF push. I will give a name to my application. I'm going to call this name staging. And I will need to give it an output name here. I'm going to explain that. Yes, that's correct. Yes. Cool. Now I need to specify the jar binary that I'm going to push to CF. I'm going to deploy to CF, which will be release jar somewhere. What jar? This should work. There is some magic going on here. these environment variables, right? From where they are coming from? Well, from nowhere. So we need to tell concourse. So we need to say CF API. Now there is some more magic here. Okay, so question to you. From where do you think this CF underscore API lowercase variable is coming from? From the secret file. There you go. Someone is following. Thank you. Right, so I'm going to grab all of those. CF. Staging. Yes. Space. Space. CF. No, staging space. Staging space. And this CF username. I'm not using this one explicitly in my script, in the code that I wrote down, because the CFO command is going to look for these variables in the password. I think I plugged everything. Okay, this should work. If it doesn't work, the pipeline is going to go red, and then we can get from that. Cool. Let's set this pipeline. Okay, so I have my changes here. I will say yes. Now I will refresh this guy here. Now there you go. I have my second job appearing here. Cool. So let's talk about the third best practice, which says, well, every time you deploy something, you should run smoke tests, right? That's very important. So when you're like writing code, you write like unit tests, integration tests, acceptance tests, basic performance tests, a bunch of tests, right? But why do you need to write smoke tests? Because like every time you are deploying an application, you are bringing together the four elements of an application or of a system, right? Which are the environment, so your operating system, your database, your message broker, doesn't matter. Oh, sorry. Thank you. So your message broker, environment, configuration. You need to inject some configuration, right, to configure the application to say, hey, talk to the database. Here's the, your Facebook, Twitter credentials if you are connecting to Twitter or Facebook. You have the code that you're building, right, or many applications if you are deploying a microservice. And the data, right, the data that you have in your application. So you have these four aspects, right, coming together. And the smoke test is a small test that will try to call the application or exercise the application in a way that will sort of give you some indication that these four aspects are well configured together, right? They were well deployed together. So in our case, we're going to use a curl call because that's simple. We're just going to call the application and checking something is coming back if we get a 200 response code. But in your case, you could build a small workflow that will try to exercise, many components of your application, for example. Not going to change state. Maybe it's going to change state, maybe it's going to go back, but just to give you an indication that the deployment worked well, right? So enjoy it again. Now. So how I'm going to do that, I'm going to create another task. I'm going to call run small test. I'm going to pass a config here. And I'm going to specify the container. I'm going to use the same one. And here I'm going just to say curl and with some arguments. And I got this one. I will do this one instead. Because I'm instructing Joe to fail if Joe is not able to have a 200 status code from my application. Just in this case. So it's going to be pet clinic, staging, and my CF domain, which is CF, which is coming from a secret file, right? So there you go. Nice one, guys.
The reason we need the -- fail curl is because concourse sees everything that is a non-zero status code from in the task as a failure, and that's the default behavior for curl. If it can publish to the server, it returns 0. -- fail makes it return a non-zero status code if the status code is not 200 in the request.
Cool. That's not going to show up. This task is not going to show up now because I need to trigger the build again. Because when I trigger this build, the smoke test task was not there. Cool. Moving on. for principal, there is something wrong with this pipeline, right? As of now, do you have an idea what's wrong? Why I am?
Why do you build it again? Before?
I'm building that again. Yes, that's a problem, but there is another problem. But that's a spoiler for the practice. Exactly. So the deployment should be triggered after the build, right? And why is that? Well, maybe because let's talk now about the fourth best practice. We should stop the line on any failures, right? So what this means is that, well, if someone pushes some code and this code is going to break the application, in this case, we're still going to deploy the application, right? And that's not what we want. It's very simple to catch this here because this pipeline is very small. If you have a big pipeline, like this can be not obvious to catch, right? So validate something first and only then deploy. So we need to put this stuff in sequence because like if something fails, we should stop the line and we're not stopping the line. So let me do that. Okay, so in this case, right, so in this case, I'm building this binary here. I will do, this is just, right, yes, that's right. I'm doing the before. Yes. So in Concourse, we can say to a job that this job is going to consume a resource coming from another job, right? And in order to do that, we use this past property here. And in this case, I'm going to use that in the source code, and I'm going to say, well, just consume the source code that is coming out from the build job, right? This means that this job here will just trigger with the commits that are coming out from the other job. I have the D in there somewhere. There you go. Just say yes here. Oh, this one failed. We can check that. But let me just refresh this one, and there you go. We have like a sequence, and this job will just be triggered once this job here is green. So let me quickly have a look at that. Can create restart. Let me check my config. This is the I'm missing this one because I'm inside source code. So that should be. Okay. Let me trigger this again. There you go. Right. So the fifth best practice. Someone talked about that. We are building the binary. Twice in here, right? We're building a binary here and we're building a binary here. I can show you that in the config. So this is the deploy job. In the deploy job, I have a compile task, which is doing this straight and package thing. And if I go back to the build job, I'm going to have the same thing fixed. Right? Why is that important? Because, well, let's suppose that you have a big pipeline. Let's suppose that you're deploying across, different environments. And let's suppose that at the beginning of the pipeline, you are building your binary, right? And then you deploy across various environments. In the end, you rebuild your binary, right? So the binary will be deployed in production. It's not going to be the same as the binary that you tested across the pipeline, right? It's going to be tricky, but suppose that the environment that's building the binary is different. I don't know, different operating system, different, I don't know, libraries. If you're doing C, C++, if you're in libraries, like you can build a very different binary, right? Things can change in your environment. So let's make sure we build the binary once and we deploy the same binary across all the environments. So in this case, I will do what I was doing in the previous one. I will just, at this point, copy the environment, the binary out. So just do some templates here. There you go. So now I'm copying that outside of the container. I can go on this deploy job and I can remove the compile task. Not this one. And now I'm copying the binary outside of the container. But now I need to copy the binary outside of the job, right? Because this binary will be passed on to another job. Okay? How we do that in Concourse, there is we talked about resources. And in resources, we can say get to grab the content of the resource, but we can also say put to like upload something to a resource, right? In this case, I'm using, I forgot which one. This one. So this is a resource for S3, Amazon S3. We just upload some binary in there. Some stuff coming out of my secrets file, that's fine. So I will add my resource in here. And I need to pass some parameters, and I need to say, well, the binary you're going to upload is going to come from this directory. Cool. So now we're producing, we are sort of exporting, saving this binary out of the pipeline. We need to get this binary in here now, in the second job. So let's just get the compiler. Every new compiler is going to trigger this one, so we do not need this one to be triggered anymore by source code. And this one is going to be passed as well from build. Cool, so the name now is going to be compiler jar because I changed. As well. Fingers crossed, it should work. Okay, so some changes, the diff is in there. I'm going to update my pipeline. This one is running, and there we go. Now I'm exporting the compiler and I'm not I'm not compiling again on the second job. Cool. Okay. Let's go to the last principle. And the last principle says, well, if we are deploying across many environments, we should deploy the same way, right? And it happens a lot in like companies and teams that are not do not live in a DevOps culture, right? Where you have like developers using their fancy tools, something different that compared to the tools that the production or the operation is using, right? So in this case, what happens is that, let's suppose that developers or the development team is responsible for the deployment across all the environments but production, right? So we're going to use, they are going to use their tools. And when we'll be just about to deploy to production, the operations team will be using their tool, right? So what can happen there is that, well, deployment can fail because, we never tested that deployment before, in the other environments, right? So we'll try to align, we'll try to use the same tools, and it's better, I've seen some folks saying, well, I do not like the tools the operations team is using because, many reasons, and I have my fancy tools and I do not want to pick up on that. But you have more value if you use the same tooling, even if the tooling is not the last one that came out. But if you use the same tools, you're going to exercise more often your deployment with the same tool. And then when you'll be about to deploy to production, well, you look behind, you will see all the deployments that you've made using the same tooling. Your level of confidence is going to be very high because you're testing that deployment. So in this case, I'm going to do it again. In this case, I'll be using a script. And in my script, I have this stuff in here. So in this case, the script will be my tool, right? And the deploy job and the next job I'm going to create, the release job, they are going to use the same script. So that's how I'm going to solve this principle here. So let's create the last one. That's the data. Okay, so this one we're going to call release. We're going to get source code from deploy. And we're going to get compiler jar from deploy. This is not going to be deployed to stage anymore. I'm going to do deploy prod. This is still okay. And now I'm going to use my script. So in this case, my script is going to be very good. So this one. come back here. So okay, so this script will live in my source code, right? So there's a folder in there. So I need to source code slash this path here and the push to cloud. And this script is basically the code that I have in here. Let's just double check it. So I have the environment variables in there, and I need to pass the jar as an argument. So let's go for this. This is going to be compiled. Jar. I need to do the same thing. Handle. Yeah, this one. Right, so this one is ready, and I can, yeah, this is what I need to grab the input. It's not good, right? Oh yeah, sure. I need to make this accessible available inside the container as well. So I can replace this one because I'm using the same tool, and there you go. Let's try to set it. Click again. Let's just check it in the report. There you go. Refresh here, we've got that new job, and hopefully this job should trigger at some point. Yeah, right back in time. So let's come back here and maybe we'll be able to show you the pipeline in the end. So I'm gonna pick up from there.
Yes, there's of course things you didn't show in this pipeline. You should deploy, run your tests. Perhaps you want to put a gate between release to production. You want someone to get that button. It's just a simplified version of the pipeline. But the important thing are the six principles we saw today. Being the first one, the changes are propagated to the pipeline immediately. That means you don't run your pipelines overnight. You don't wait every Tuesday to run them. But you run every time that someone commits something and it just triggers it over. I know that my team has one pipeline that runs every Tuesday, but we should not happen. Second principle being deploy into production-like environment. We solved that by using Cloud Foundry. And what we want is to exercise this deployment. We want to make sure that the thing I'm testing is close enough to production, so when they get there, it's not a surprise that it doesn't work for some particular reason. Should run smoke tests in all of your deployments, so this gives you a bit of benefit. At least it will save you some time, because maybe all the tests are passing, but if you just code the application, it actually is not there. So you don't go and try to run the rest of the tests. You should stop the line on any failures, otherwise it's not even a pipeline, it's just a bunch of things that you run in parallel. In Concourse, we can do that by using the past property. You should try to build your binaries only once, so you ensure that the thing you're shipping, the thing you're trying to put in production is the same thing that you tested. It's good with the same things. And you should try to deploy it the same way to every environment. So when you're actually going to release, you're not testing that script the first time in the last 3 months, but that script was tested in every single commit. Because if you follow all of it, it should be being deployed in every single commit. And I guess that's pretty much it.
Maybe just to show an example about like other more complex pipelines. So like this pipeline is very simple, but like if you have like more complex pipeline, for example, the one from the Russian QT, you can have a lot of jobs, and like the goal of continuous delivery is to automate as much as possible, right? Because like that would allow you to deploy to production very often. So you can have very complex pipelines like this one, and it's very important to observe these principles when you're building like big pipelines like this one, right? Because, well, if something goes red, it's very simple to know and like to rule out a bunch of problems that you could have. So I'll just try to show your view. I'll put it down. There you go. Yeah, there you go. It goes on. This would be good. So I think that's it. Any questions? And we have the touch box for the questions.
Any questions? Oh, I need to watch the throw the cat. No? What about number 7? Yeah, go on over there.
There we go. Let's try this. Ready?
Hey.
So on the point you made about stopping the pipeline as soon as you see any failure, do you think there are exceptions to that? So we kind of started that principle, but then we found that actually the other principle of wanting to provide feedback as fast as possible, in some cases we were sort of stopping the pipeline on sort of some static analysis, which was finding a useful issue with, but actually we didn't want to then not tell them that there are actually some important test fails later on as well. So yeah,
So I think there is an interesting quote about rules and laws. Like they're there for you to know when you can break them or not. So these are principles, and yes, you're right. Maybe sometimes like it's not worth like okay, stop the pipeline because like I don't care, right? Even if this bit here is broken, I can deploy to production. It's a very sort of a control risk you can take. So yes, you're right. But if you are doing, you should be doing that conscious that, well, I know what's happening and I assume the risk, right? But yes.
But if that particular job is not important enough for you to stop the line, should you have that job or should you just get rid of it? Because the reason I ask is, let's say that everything is green but that red job is red. Will you fix it before releasing? Because if you will, then all of the other tests will run again. So.
There you go. Ready?
So have you got any formula about the length the pipeline takes to run against how immediately you run the commits? So I've run into situations where you get lots of commits quickly and you're running a pipeline each time, you're just building up a whole bunch of things. Any thoughts on that?
That is like multiple ways you can fix that or solve that or try to defend yourself against that. Concourse allows you to do, there's a property called the serial, for example, which means that job will only run once at a given point. So if people are committing a lot and this job takes, 30 minutes to run, it's not going to run with all the 29 commits that built up while that job was running. So it's just going to run with the latest point. That's something you can do. There is, if you look at that Redis, like that Redis pipeline, what they're doing here somewhere. There we go. What they're probably doing is a thing that's called a fan out. So each one of those blocks are probably the same thing, but running like a different aspect of a system test, for example. So if I have 20 system tests and each one of them take 10 minutes to run, instead of putting all of them in the same box, in the same job, we fan out, and we have like 20 jobs that takes 10 minutes to run. And then they fan in after that, so they all get together into the next step of your pipeline. So that's also something we do.
But I think like in your first example, Derek gave about the serial. So let's suppose that we have 5 commits. Let's suppose that the build job is going to take 1 minute and the deploy job is going to take, 5 minutes, right? So the first commit is going to trigger the deploy job. It's going to take like 5 minutes. And the next time that the deploy job will run, it will run with the batch of the commits, all the green commits from the previous commits. So the bottleneck is going to be the slowest. Anyone? Or I don't know. Like that, right?
there are many other tools in the market like Jenkins, CI. So how do you fare when it comes to this? And like we use Jenkins quite often, so we have some problem with the slaves because sometimes you have multiple jobs running, the slave gets slows down. How do you cater this?
So like disclaimer, we work at Pivotal. Pivotal is helping to build Concourse, so we use Concourse, and I use it not because like we need to use, but because we've chosen. Like there are other teams sometimes using other tools, but like most of the teams are using Concourse. And the cool thing about Concourse is that like, it's very simple, it's very clean, and this can be something difficult for folks coming from GenT because like in Concourse, as I showed you, like if you are building a pipeline, you need to write your YAML file, like with your pipeline configuration. You do not have a UI where you're going there, you go there and stuff. So like when Concourse runs, it's much more, it has much less state. So like it's less likely for you to run into the states where like you have workers, you have some sort of state in there, you do not know the state. All the state is in the container, and the containers are trashed out. So you clean your state every time. And there's something I quite like about Concourse, like it's been like more than 2 years I didn't check Jenkins and the new features that Jenkins has. But like in the past, I struggled a lot personally, installing plugins and to build the pipelines we wanted to build, we needed to install like 20, 30 plugins, and then you need to sort of upgrade them and have conflicts, and they can be quite challenging. I don't know nowadays, so maybe it's much better. But like Concourse was designed with this concept of pipelines in mind. So like pipeline is a first-class citizen in Concourse, so you do not need to add stuff on top to get pipelines, like just writing YAML files. It's much simpler, it's much lighter.
This one. Excellent. Okay, Diego, Derek, thank you very, very much.